Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Daniela and I'm going to be talking you through my top 5 books of 2021. So if you've been following me for a while, you will know that I started my reading journey back in August of 2021, and since then I have read 25 books up to the end of the year, and so I'm just going to do a top 5 this year. Hopefully I'll read more next year and I'll be able to do a larger amount. I have included series in my top 5 just because I read quite a few series this year, and I haven't read that many standalone books, but they weren't amazing, so I'm including series. I'm doing it. So I'm just going to start with the lowest of the 5 and I'm going to work my way up to number 1. So number 5 on my list is the Caraval series by Stephanie Garber. I borrowed these from the library, so I don't have copies. I really enjoyed this series. The first book, it took me a little while to get into it. It is a YA fantasy with a bit of romance sprinkled in there, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun, it was magical, the characters I enjoyed. My favourite characters kind of changed as the books went on. So my favourite character in the first book was Dante, but then my favourite character in the final book, which is finale, was Jax. Hands down. For me, these books got better as they went on. So I think I rated the first book 3 stars, the second book 4 stars, and the third book was 5 stars. I really enjoyed the last book, and I think that was because of the introduction of some new stuff that they brought in. I'm not going to tell you what that was, but yeah, the third book for me was the best one. It got a little bit darker, a little bit more creepy, and I really enjoyed it. Caraval follows 2 sisters as the main characters, and Caraval is kind of like this circus that's run by Master Legend, and they go to a different town every time. They never go to the same place twice. So these 2 sisters, as little girls growing up, they want to see Caraval. They want to attend Caraval. It's kind of like a game you participate in, and there's a prize if you win, and there's a lot of magic involved. It's like a magical world, and you're not sure like what's real and what's not real kind of thing. They'll tell you like at the start of the game not to believe what you see, not to get too invested in anything because it's not real, and if you do, you can go mad, you can lose your mind. So anyway, one of the daughters is writing to Master Caraval as a child, asking him every year, will he come back to this town, because he's already been to their town before, and eventually they get a reply and he invites them to go to a special event on their private island. And so basically that's where it starts from, and it follows on from there, the whole of the series. So if you're looking for something that's just like fun, not too hard to wrap your head around, magical, bit of romance in there, I'd highly suggest reading that. Number 4 on my list is another series. I've only read book 1 and book 2 so far. Book 3 I haven't read yet, and book 4 is not out yet. So it's the Guild series by Raven Kennedy, and this is kind of advertised as a King Midas retelling. It isn't what I thought it was going to be, but I love that it isn't what I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to be a fantasy romance. I would say it's not heavy on the romance in like the first 2 books. I haven't read further than that, so I don't know if there will be a romance at some point, but for me, I wouldn't class this as a fantasy romance. I'd class this as a fantasy. Do check the trigger warnings on this, because there are abuse plot lines, there is a rape scene in one of the books, there could be more triggers, I'm not sure, look them up. But these books had me hooked. I couldn't put them down. I had to read the second one shortly after reading the first one, and I'm really excited to read the third one, but I've slowed down my pace a little bit now because I kind of want to wait until the 4th book's out. I don't want a massive gap in between, so I'm trying to bide my time a little bit before I pick up book number 3. This is in a fantasy world. The first book follows our main character Auron, who is gilded. She's had the gold touch, so her skin is gold, her hair is gold, she wears gold clothes, and she is kept in a gilded cage, and she lives in the palace of King Midas. And we'll follow her on her journey. Things happen in this book, there are twists and turns. It's very well written what the author is portraying in these books, but in a fantasy setting. Like, I think it is so clever how they have done what they have done. I don't really want to say much more than that, but trust me, these are well worth the read. So number 3 on my list is the Acotar series, which is A Court of Thorns and Roses, A Court of Mist and Fury, and A Court of Wings and Ruin. There's also a novella after that, which is A Court of Frost and Starlight, and A Court of Silver Flames. So it carries on, but the main characters change after the 3rd book. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to count the first 3 books because that's like a kind of start to finished story with those characters. These are the books that started it. These are the books that have started this obsession with books. I heard a lot about them. I heard people raving about them. I didn't hear much negative stuff about them before I picked them up. So there was a lot of hype there, and they lived up to the hype for me, definitely. These books I would definitely say are fantasy romance, but they're not just like a main romance plot. Like, there is a whole plot behind the romance as well, and they are fast paced. Well, after the first book they are fast paced, I would say. The first book was a 3-star read for me, second book was a 5-star, fourth book was a 4-star, just because it's kind of hard to beat book 2 of this series, and if you've read it you'll know why. I listened to them on audiobook. The audiobooks are very, very good. Really enjoyed them. I have also bought physical copies now so that I can read them. I'm trying to leave some time before I do that, but I definitely want to reread them because I feel like I would enjoy the first book more now, having read the second and third book. The twists in these books are great, the reveals in these books are great, we have trials in these books, we have battles in these books, we have enemies to lovers. These books for me also, not just the main characters are good, like the side characters in these books are amazing. I love all the side characters so much. I thought the world building in these books are good. I love the relationships between the characters. We have a found family in these books. They're so good. The relationships were it for me. Honestly, just like seeing the interactions between the characters and how they joked with each other and like that family bond that they have, I loved it. So this one's kind of advertised as a Beauty and the Beast retelling, but I wouldn't get too hung up on that. I'd say like the first book is maybe kind of Beauty and the Beast-esque, but it's after that point I would say it's not. I will say I don't think it's as predictable as you think it's going to be being told it's a Beauty and the Beast retelling. I think it does a very good job of doing what it does. This was also my first book reading about fae. I never thought I would be a person that enjoys reading about fairies. Fairies are not what I thought they were, that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, if you're looking for a great fantasy romance series, I highly recommend this series, and it's a whole other world. Okay, so the series are out of the way. We're done with series. Number 2 on my top 5 books of the year. It's a standalone book. It was a new release, I think in 2021, possibly 2020. But it was an author debut, and that is The Push by Ashley Audrain. Now, I didn't think I was going to like this book. I didn't know much about it. I just knew it was a book about motherhood. That's all I really knew. I thought it was just going to be like kind of fiction. For me, this felt a bit more like a thriller. I think it's possibly advertised as a domestic thriller or like psychological. So this book follows our main character. So it covers her relationship with her children, but it also covers her mother's relationship with her children and her grandmother's relationship with her children. So you're kind of getting 3 different perspectives in this family history, basically. I'd say the first half of the book is kind of introducing the character and telling you like their family history, like what they were like, what their mother was like as a parent, what their grandmother was like as a parent, and how the effects of that have sort of ricocheted down to her generation. And then she becomes a new mother, and so I'd say from probably about halfway through this book onwards, it's unputdownable. If you get halfway, it is absolutely unputdownable. I couldn't stop. I read this very quickly. I think I read this in like 2 or 3 days. Didn't take me long at all. It's around 300 pages. It was so good. I enjoyed this so much. I can't even tell you how much I enjoyed this. It definitely deals with grief. It deals with self-doubt. It deals with, I'd say, like a bit of gaslighting in there as well. It's very well written. It's very exciting. There are bits in there that are shocking. There are bits that will... My mouth dropped. I couldn't believe what I was reading. And then the kicker is the last page of this book. Not the last page, sorry. The last line of this book. The last line. It's so good, but the last line is gonna leave it. It's gonna leave it in a place where you want more. You want to know. You need to know. But it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine that you don't know. Because that's what makes the book, I think. I think the fact that you don't know is what makes this book. Because you just go on this roller coaster of emotions. You're going on this roller coaster of emotions with this main character, and you're going back and forth in your head, and you're second guessing everything, and it's so well done. But yeah, the last line of the book, I nearly threw the book across the room. I didn't throw my book because I love it. It's a very nice book. I'm keeping it. I think I might reread this. I really, really enjoyed it, and I'm trying to get Andy to read it because it's so good. I would say, whatever you think this book is, just pick it up. Pick it up. No matter what you think it is, pick it up. It's so good. I know I just keep saying it's so good. There aren't words. I can't really put, there's just not words for how good this book is. Just read it. Just read the book. And finally, my number one book of 2021, my favourite book of the year, and I think so far my favourite book of all time, is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. I absolutely love this book. I love everything about it. It was so engaging all the way through, so relatable. So it's a book about, I'd say a book about people. A book about our insecurities and our anxieties. But it is a fiction book, and it follows our main character, who is a bank robber. So we're following a bank robber, and they end up in a hostage situation with hostages, okay? There are a good few characters in this book. You get backstory into all of these characters, and I just fell in love with every single character. Like, I fell in love with every single character. I laughed so many times during this book. It is sarcastic, it is funny. I cried so many times in this book. There was like several parts in this book where like it just hit me in my heart. And yeah, it made me cry. And the last page of this book, the author is speaking directly to you as a reader, and on that last page, oh, hang on. When I read the last page, I burst into tears. I absolutely bawled my eyes out. I've never done that reading a book in my life. Andy was sat next to me and he was like, what's wrong? There was a demon inside me that was released when I finished reading that book. It was so good. I loved it. I love it so much. Netflix have done a TV series, which I have watched. It literally came out not long after I read the book. And I think I looked it up because I knew there was going to be one. I think it says it on the book somewhere. I looked it up the day before it came out, and then I watched it the next day. Don't recommend the series at all. Not at all. Maybe watch it after you've read the book if you like want to, but all the elements that make the book great are not in the series. It's a very hard book to adapt, a very difficult book to adapt. You need to read the book to get the emotion and even the comedy aspects. Like, read the book. There is a narrator in the book that isn't in the TV series, and the narration in the book comments on the characters and their feelings and the situations, and it's the commentary that like really gets you. But yeah, love the book. I can't tell you much about the story because you have to read it. This book is going to make you question yourself when it comes to making assumptions about people. That's all I'm gonna say. It is shocking what assumptions you will make about a person based on what the world has taught you as you've grown up. Like, shocking. But yeah, read the book. It's amazing. I love it. It will make you laugh. It will make you cry. It will just make you feel everything, and it's so well written. And there's an acknowledgements page at the back of the book. I would recommend reading the first, I think it's 3 or 4 people that he mentions in these acknowledgements, because that'll just like rip your heart out all over again. And yeah, I cried in reading the acknowledgements. It's my favourite book. The author is Frederick Backman. It is called Anxious People. It's the best book I have read so far, ever, and you should go read it. So that's it, guys. That was my top 5 books of 2021. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give the video a big thumbs up. Let me know what your favourite books were of 2021 down in the comments. If you've got any recommendations for me, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I will see you next time.